Welcome back to the show, everybody. Listen to these headlines we have for you today. Ripple gets a French connection, does it? Oh, this is right after Singapore, too. You're going to love it. And I guess what else we got here? Former Ripple advisor. Why is he meeting with the president of the ECB? Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube for exclusive content. Right now, $1.21 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is off by 0.2%. Happy Friday, everybody. Bitcoin sitting just over 30,000 today, and Ethereum at 1873 and 73 cents. That's where we are this morning. Tether market cap is back up to 83.3 billion plus, watching it close. We see XRP is up 5.3% on the 7-day, but off by 1.8 in the last 24 hours, holding at 48 cents right now, which is a critical line according to the technical analysts. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't checked it out, look, I told you about AI yesterday. Proof's in the pudding, ladies and gentlemen. I told you, the XRP community, the crypto space understands artificial intelligence, and they bought it all yesterday. That's what happened. Yeah, don't mess around. If you're accredited and you want to get access to the best private equity in the space, you could do it right here from link2.com. Take a look at this. This is where we're starting this morning here. We got to cover a little bit of what we've gone over, get everybody caught up here. Remember, we covered yesterday Veritas in their reporting showing a BlackRock official or employee talking about the fact that the president is, you want to get to the president's wallet in order to control him. Take a quick listen.
And just how much it costs to buy people, like politicians.
Let me tell you, it's not through who's the president. It's who's controlling the wallet. So it's the,
and who's that?
The hedge funds, BlackRock, the banks. These guys want campaign financing. Yep, you can buy your candidates.
How so?
All of these financial institutions, they buy politicians.
They buy politicians. And you know what? That's the way the system really works. Good morning. Yeah. And if this is Congress standing up against corruption, regulatory capture inside a government agency like the SEC, we're screwed. Vote them all out. Listen, just a piece of this, if I could.
Is it true that the SEC employees in the Office of Intergovernmental and Legislative Affairs have prior experience in congressional oversight and investigations?
Thank you for the question. Yeah. Just to clarify, that's not my office.
I understand, but
yeah,
do they?
Yes, that is correct.
And is it true that the SEC employees in the Office of the General Counsel have prior experience in white-collar litigation and congressional investigations?
Let's skip ahead.
Attempting to narrow the scope of the request in order to start a search for the documents. Are you familiar with the briefing the Division of Enforcement provided to the committee?
Yes, I am. Okay. We offered that.
All right. Briefing. In your professional opinion, do you think a briefing about how the SEC and the Justice Department work together is sufficiently responsive to our request for records and communications?
So I thank you for the question.
You turned it off.
Thank you for the question. I do think that the briefing is responsive, and the reason is that the request looks at and is asking for information about a parallel investigation conducted by our staff at the SEC and the Department of Justice.
Okay, so am I supposed to now send all of our SEC inquiries to the Department of Justice?
Congressman, we have been responsive to your staff with respect to
That's not my question. So if you're telling me that, well, we can't answer anything, but we were slow to start, you seem to acknowledge that. We're now had to kick it over to DOJ. So are you familiar with the production your team made at the briefing on March 15?
This is the full court press in Congress right now. This is Congress getting answers. Oh, brother. Then there's this. Let's take a look at this. Sources close to Jay Clayton. This is coming from Brian Costello. Shout out to Mr. Intuitive, who has got a great Twitter Spaces show he's doing now on the weekly. I was really, really just privileged and honored to be able to participate in this show last night, and it was fantastic. And I wish I could have stayed for the whole thing, but I had to hop out. But I'll tell you this, there's a great clip here where Brian Costello breaks down the China connection and the SEC and ETHgate and Prometheum, all this stuff, and you need to hear it here, but yet you see how slow and ineffective Congress is going. It looks like nothing more than political posturing from Congress at this point. One has to wonder if they've got some red China dollars in their pocket on the right side of the aisle.
I wasn't shocked when they cleared the way for Ether because they wanted to create, and I think a lot of people conflate these two things and they can be unrelated, right? They wanted to clear the path for the China IPOs. They needed to not reveal China frauds because they needed to keep the door open. They needed to make sure there was regulatory clarity on Bitcoin and Ether because a lot of the stuff they thought would go public was, hardware infrastructure related that would also run blockchain technology. As Wall Street and the financial markets and payments and all this stuff got overhauled with the underlying blockchain technology, which they kind of believed in. So they needed to cover up China frauds. They needed to make sure there was a clear path. And this is the way their friends on Wall Street were going to make money, and they were going to get their quid pro quo going back in the private sector. So it's very clear. Like, I don't think anybody would kind of argue this. In the meanwhile, China had all its stuff going on, and one of the guys that was driving the Chinese digital currency strategy was Neil Shen from Sequoia. He was pitching through this important Chinese body, this whole idea of, Hong Kong should have its own currency, China should have all of Asia, they should have a basket coin that converts, and that was kind of covered in 2020, I think pretty well. And so my theory, and this is my theory, is that on Clayton's way out, I believe there were some seriously things done wrong there, and everybody wanted to go after Trump world. And he was worried, and that this whole, file the suit on his way out the door, there were no intentions of doing it. I mean, everybody said Hinman kind of pushed it. I still don't know exactly why Hinman would have been pushing that, but ultimately that's Clayton's decision. I mean, Clayton voted with 2 Democratic commissioners on the way out the door. So you can only conclude one thing from that he was appeasing Democrats. And the only place the Democrats haven't gone after the Trump administration is at the SEC. And I was told by someone, and I'm actually told Clayton hates Gensler now, that he's not happy with him, from someone that actually has talked directly to Clayton. And so I know that the chair of the SEC, Gensler, and this is through someone that had a direct conversation with him, was told to go soft on China. So he gets his marching orders from the administration, right, from the White House and Treasury.
And there you have that, ladies and gentlemen. Fresh in from Brian Costello on the Troomers Twitter Spaces show. Shout out to Mr. I for that and all the people who attended. It was fantastic. You should go back and listen to the whole thing. And this makes me think of it right here. We got a communism clown show going on. CCP, Prometheum, Wan Zhang, ETHgate. It's all tied together. And while all of that is happening, we got massive news yesterday. This here is Yoshitaka Katal, the head of SBI, sharing in the enjoyment of the Ripple news, getting a licensed approval for an in-principle regulatory license or in-principle license delivered to them by the Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is the central bank in Singapore. One has to wonder if they're licensed like that. I think Mike Marath and I were talking about this in DMs. And, one has to wonder, we've talked about it quite a few times on this channel, does that make Ripple a bank? Let's take a look at this. Big salute to everyone at Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse, Monica Long, Stuart Alderati, and all the team there at Ripple for their hard work and unwavering dedication and never taking their eye off of the ball. There's no doubt about it. This is massive news what's happened here in Singapore. It is going to give them the ability to expand inside of the financial banking system of the world. Singapore is a huge hub, ladies and gentlemen, huge financial hub. And very quickly, before we get on to the Ripple connection in France, the French connection, I want to give this from Susan Friedman here, formerly of the U.S. Treasury and head of policy at Ripple there. She's saying, today's news is the result of months of thoughtful engagement by world-class regulator, Monetary Authority of Singapore. Looking forward to watching Ripple continue to build in jurisdictions like Singapore that are laser-focused on building comprehensive regulatory framework for digital assets. Shout out to Susan for that. And here we see we need a new way. Bank of England strategy head pushes for digital pound. Oh, it's coming, ladies and gentlemen. The globe is moving towards this digital world, not just one or two countries now, right? And we know, I think it's SACIS is how you say it. SACIS is a joint venture in BNP Paribas, who happens to be a big client of Ripple, acquired Medico. And look at these connections very quickly here. Ripple buys Swiss startup Medico as SEC lawsuit conclusion looms here. And we can see that the deal is expected to bolster Ripple's product suite and give it access to an attractive roster of clients that includes Citi and BNP Paribas. This just in, $5 trillion French asset manager SACIS to offer crypto custody services. That is a nice little French connection. To go a little further here, Cowboy.Crypto always goes the distance. Uptevia, a joint venture of SACIS and BNP Paribas, aims to revolutionize issuer services in France and across Europe. Don't forget about the license that Ripple also received in Ireland. BNP Paribas and SACIS create Uptevia, a new specialist provider of issuer services. And then we have this. Shout out to Cypress Demonacore here. Give him a follow. He puts out some really great stuff. Now, he has this clip, and I went and found the first part of this, which is actually the Chief Innovation Officer of Swift. And what he is talking about is pretty profound, because what he's talking about here is really about intertwining and being interoperable, rather, with digital assets very, very soon. This is the gentleman right here. Take a listen to Tom Zichak. Take a listen.
Of any digital asset, including a national currency. But the question is, if we and we do what we do in terms of bringing the community together and providing the network reach in a trusted way every day, how do we position ourselves?
And actually, I want to jump that back a little bit here from the perfect spot.
To deliver instant and frictionless transactions globally. It's ambitious. We're making great progress on that, and we need to accommodate new things that are happening in the marketplace, and in this case, digital assets, and more specifically, new forms of currency and digital forms of currency. And so we are trying to figure out how we can help our customers, our community, and it truly is a community. And we're looking at ways where, what can we do and leverage the strengths that we have, if and when central bank digital currencies are launched. And I think it's probably more when than if, but that's not our decision. And we're not advocating the creation of any digital asset, including a national currency. But the question is, if we and we do what we do in terms of bringing the community together and providing the network reach in a trusted way every day, how do we position ourselves? So we spoke to a number of central banks, well, actually a lot of central banks, and one of the surveys from the Atlantic Council says there's 110 central banks and countries looking at, exploring or somehow trying to figure out what to do with the digital version of their currency. So we spoke to the central banks, and I can tell you, just to kind of summarize what we saw, there's really different approaches and objectives that are being set for societal or economic value from the central banks, and it really varies per country. Things like driving competition, things like making access and inclusion more available were high on the list. But they do vary. But we also noted from a technology point of view, there's different technologies being evaluated. There's different standards. There's different protocols. There are different approaches. And when we looked at this, we said, if this actually plays out like this, it could lead to a situation of fragmentation. And if you're creating that new digital version of the currency, you could potentially build a digital island. And we don't get the sense that that's what that most of the central banks in the countries are trying to do here. So we really tried to figure out how we can help. We decided to focus our efforts on interoperability and the interlinking between the existing payment rails that we have today and the new evolving digital asset networks that will be coming with the launch of the CBDCs.
And there you have that. Now, that is the Chief Innovation Officer of SWIFT. That's who that is. Yeah, it's happening. And meanwhile, while it's happening, we got the United States Securities Exchange Commission demonizing crypto while the legacy firms are putting everything into place. And then we see this. Former Ripple advisor Michael Esbar, now the vice president of the Federal Board of Governors, met with European Central Bank Christine Lagarde. What could they have talked about? Well, it says here that on yesterday in Frankfurt, according to a recent tweet, this meeting has resulted in some buzz in the XRP community. Longtime Christine Lagarde met with Michael Esbar here. And essentially it says, while she's been critical of Bitcoin and other private cryptocurrencies, expressing concerns about environmental impact, potential misuse of money laundering, and the risk of uniform investors, and simultaneously advocating central bank digital currencies. The meeting served as an advisor for Ripple Labs. A significant player of currency is likely to spur speculation about the ECB's future stance on digital currencies. Barr, who served as an advisor of Ripple Labs mid-2015, took office as vice chair of supervision of Board of Governors in the Federal Reserve System in 22, has a profound understanding of financial regulation, international finance. The details and outcomes of the meetings have not been disclosed, but the crypto community will be watching closely. Yes, we will, because this is one of the main reasons we want to watch very closely. Remember this? Let me get it to right where you need to see it.
You're going to disrupt your business model. You're going to change it. You're going to reduce your cost. You are going to expedite your transactions. And you're going to continue to inspire confidence because you will build that on the basis of an existing backbone, which is your bank and the confidence relationship that you've established with your customers. So that's where I see changes happening now. If you think of Circle and Ripples and all those, that's where they are active and helpful.
Active and helpful. Circle and Ripple. And now all of a sudden, she goes from being the IMF managing director to being the president of the European Central Bank. And he goes from being a U.S. Treasury official to a Ripple advisor to now being the vice president and vice chair of the Federal Board of Governors. And now they're both meeting and they're not disclosing the details about what they're talking about. I'm sure it's nothing. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. It's just about digital perspectives. I'll catch all of you on the next one.